She does not need you. That is the first thing you understand. And it arrives before she says a single word about it. She has a house, or a lease she signed alone, or a kid asleep down a hallway she walks every night by herself. She has a job, a calendar that runs without you, a circle of friends who screened you over text before you ever shook a hand. She is not auditioning for a life. She already has one. You are not the foundation. You are, at best, a renovation she is considering. And this is the strange, magnetic thing about it. The whole experience of loving her runs backward from everything you were trained to expect. You spent your 20s chasing women who wanted to be chosen. She has already been chosen, married, photographed in white, toasted by 200 people, and then quietly unchosen in a courthouse with worse lighting. In 2023, over 1.8 million Americans divorced, and a third of everyone who has ever married has been through it. She is not an exception. She is a demographic, and she has learned things in that demographic that you are about to learn the hard way. You think you are dating a person. You are dating a person and her entire education. 1. She already took the class you're failing. Here is what nobody warns you about the woman who has done this before. Her certainty is intoxicating until it is aimed at you. She does not play the games. She does not wait 3 days to text back because she finds the choreography exhausting and frankly insulting to her time. Women in their 40s know what they want, and they aren't afraid to ask for it. They value a man who is financially and emotionally stable over one with abs and ambition he hasn't acted on yet. The first few weeks feel like a miracle. No deciphering, no mixed signals, a grown woman saying grown sentences about what she likes, what she's done with, and where this is going. Divorced girl smiling, then you realize the certainty cuts both ways. She wants the man who's already done his own work, who's been to therapy, or worked through a hard breakup, or sat alone with his own patterns long enough to name them. She does not want to be his first long-haul reckoning. She is not interested in raising you. She did that to a husband once, and got a divorce and a depreciating asset for her trouble. Bolda. So she watches, calmly, the way someone watches a stove they have been burned on before. By a fifth date, she can ask, without flinching, what your retirement looks like. And she will notice whether you answer or deflect. The younger version of her thought that was rude. This version learned what it costs to be polite about the wrong things. Bold you came in feeling lucky to be picked. You stay feeling, faintly, like you are still being evaluated. Because you are. She is not cold. She is just done pretending she has unlimited time to find out who you really are. 2. The third person. In every relationship. You wanted her. You got her, her schedule, and a man you will never meet but will hear about for the rest of your life. If there are kids, there is an ex, and the ex does not leave when the marriage does. He arrives in the form of a shared calendar app, color-coded, non-negotiable. He is the reason she cannot do Thursday. He is the name that appears on her phone at 9 p.m. with a question about a permission slip, and the way her face changes for exactly 4 seconds before she remembers you are sitting there. Co-parenting, the experts say, should run like a business partnership. Professional, efficient, unemotional. It rarely does. You learn to read the weather of a single text message. This is the part that ambushes grown men. You are not jealous of a rival. You are jealous of a logistics system. Even when the contact is purely about parenting, new partners feel the sting of a partner who still, regularly, has to talk to their ex. The custody schedule is the real third party in the relationship, and it was drafted by lawyers before you were a thought. So you adapt. You stop planning around weekends and start planning around handoffs. You learn the difference between her parenting weeks, when she is tired and short and stretched, and her off weeks, when the house is quiet and she is briefly, almost guiltily, free. You memorize a court order you never signed, and on a good night, when the kids are at their dad's and she pours 2 glasses and exhales like a woman who has set down something heavy, you understand the trade. You are not first. You are never going to be first. You are the person who shows up anyway, in the spaces the schedule allows, and learns to call that enough. The marriage ended. The administration of it is forever. 3. The wall you mistake for a door. She lets you in. That is what makes it confusing. You are at the table, in the bed, in the group text. You have been let in. You just haven't been let down. There is a difference, and it takes you months to feel it. She is generous with her life and stingy with the one room that got wrecked last time. You can sleep beside her and still hit a surface you didn't know was there. A flinch when you raise your voice. A stillness when you make a promise too quickly. A quiet recalibration every time you say the word forever like it's free. A whole dating pool, men report, of divorced women and single moms whose previous relationships traumatized them so badly they stay avoidant, too afraid to be vulnerable, too afraid to trust that you won't jeopardize the independence they bled for. You will be tempted to take this personally. Don't. It isn't about you. It is about a man who said the same things you're saying, in the same warm voice, while quietly becoming someone she had to leave. She is not testing whether you're lying. She is testing whether she can survive it if you are. So she keeps a little money you don't see, a little plan you're not in, a friend who is on standby for the version of this where it goes wrong. She learned the hard way that boundaries aren't selfish, that the silence she kept to avoid conflict in her marriage is exactly what let the small things grow into the thing that ended it. She is not going to make that mistake on your account. She will tell you what's wrong now, early, in a flat, clear sentence, and you will sometimes wish she would go back to being mysterious about it. The cruelty of it is that her guardedness is also her gift. The same wall that keeps you out is the thing that lets her stay standing. You fell for a woman who survived something. You don't get the survivor without the scar tissue. That's not a package deal you can negotiate. That's just her. You wanted someone who wouldn't break easily. Congratulations. She already broke once and rebuilt herself out of materials that don't bend for anyone, including you. 4. You are not the main character. If there are children, here is your role in the family photo. Slightly to the side, smiling, recently arrived. You will not be their father. You may not even be welcome at first, and the welcome, when it comes on their terms and their timeline, not yours. At least half of American children now live with a biological parent and a step-parent, which means your situation is ordinary, and ordinary does not mean easy. Teenagers will fight your presence harder than little kids, and you have fewer years to win them over before they're gone. You can do everything right, show up, stay calm, never overstep. And a 14-year-old can still look at you across the dinner table like you are a piece of furniture that started talking. This is the loneliest part of the job, and nobody hands you a title for it. Step-parents routinely describe feeling like an outsider in their own home. Disrespected by the kids, sometimes unbacked by the spouse, parenting in a house where they have responsibility and almost no authority. You discipline nothing, you decide nothing, you pay sometimes for a lot. And the moment you forget your place, the biological parent, the woman you love, will remind you whose kids these are, gently or not, because protecting them is the reflex that outranks everything, including you. So you learn the second-place math. Her kid's recital beats your anniversary. A sick child cancels the trip you booked. The text from the ex about a fever ends the evening you'd been looking forward to all week. You don't get to be the priority. You get to prove, slowly, over months, that you can be trusted around the people who are. And here's the dark joke underneath it. Roughly 2/3 of second marriages involving kids from a prior relationship end. And a lot of them end right here, on this exact rock, because a man wanted to be loved and discovered he had signed up to be useful first. But some nights the kid hands you the controller without being asked, or laughs at your terrible joke before remembering they decided to hate you. And you feel something embarrassing and enormous, a pride you have no legal right to. You came for the woman. You stayed because her whole world quietly let you in the back door. 5. The money speaks with an accent of fear. You will notice the accounts are separate before anyone says the word separate. She is not cheap. She is not hiding anything from you exactly. She has simply lived through the financial autopsy of a marriage, and the lesson took. After divorce, a woman's household income falls by an average of 41%, while a man's falls by only 23%. After splitting up, 31% of single mothers end up below the poverty line, compared to 17% of single fathers. She knows these numbers in her body even if she's never read them. She knows because for a stretch of months she lived inside them. So the woman across from you keeps her own bank account, her own credit, her own retirement she watches like a hawk. More than half of married women admit they used to defer to their husband on money. And she was once one of them. which is exactly why she will never be again. If she leaned into a marriage and let her earning power dent itself raising kids, she came out the other side and did the math on what that politeness cost her. Alimony, when it exists at all, generally runs out after a few short years. And she budgets like a woman who knows the lifeboat has a hole in it. This is where some men get insulted. They wanted to provide. They wanted the old script where his money becomes their money, and that's romance. She finds that script charming and a little dangerous, like a vintage car with no seatbelts. When she eventually asks, casually, whether you'd ever sign something, a prenup, a postnup, a clear line between what's yours and what's hers, she is not questioning your love. She is applying the only insurance policy her last life never offered her. And there is a grimmer statistic she may not even know she's betting against. About 41% of first marriages end in divorce, but second marriages fail at 60 to 67%. She has heard the odds. She is choosing to be with you anyway, which is either faith or a very calculated risk. And the honest answer is that with her, it's always a little of both. She is not protecting her money from you. She is protecting herself from the woman she used to be, the one who trusted the joint account and woke up poorer. Generosity, you learn, is easy. Trust after divorce has a price, and she is the only one still paying it. 6. The thing nobody says out loud. Here is the truth that took you a year to assemble. She is not staying because she has to, and that is the entire terrifying point. The whole architecture of her independence, the separate account, the guarded room, the schedule that doesn't bend, the kids who come first, all of it means the same thing. If she is with you, it is not for rescue. It is not for rent. It is not because the world told her a woman alone in her 40s is a tragedy. She has passed the desperation phase entirely. She is not on the "I need to get married" quest, and nothing is less attractive to her than being someone's solution. She has surveyed the available men, and divorced and separated men now make up nearly 40% of the single ones. And she still, for reasons she may not fully explain, keeps choosing you. That should feel like the best thing that's ever happened to you. Mostly it does, but it comes without the comfortable lie that she'd fall apart if you left. She wouldn't. She already survived the worst version of this. You are not her life raft. You are her choice, made fresh, most mornings, by a woman who knows exactly what the exit looks like because she has used one before. And so you stop performing. You stop trying to be the foundation because she built her own. You stop competing with the ex because the ex already lost and is now just a man in a calendar. You stop waiting to be first because first is a chair occupied by children and a hard-won self-respect. And you would not actually love a woman who'd give either of those up for you. What's left, when you stop fighting the shape of it, is something almost no one describes honestly. A love with no hostages. Two whole people, neither of them drowning, deciding to get wet anyway. She is not yours the way younger love pretended to be yours. She belongs to herself, completely, and lets you in for the view. It is the least dependent love you will ever experience. Which is precisely why, on the nights it's good, it feels like the only kind that was ever real. To love a divorced woman in her 40s is to be loved by someone who has already read the ending, knows the odds, keeps the receipts, and shows up at your door anyway. Not because she's afraid of being alone, but because she's decided you're worth the risk she swore she'd never take again. You wanted to be needed. She offered you something rarer and far more frightening. She wanted you, and she could have done just fine without you. That's the whole story. Try not to waste it.